Imagine a world where, in the blink of an eye, every human being suddenly vanished. No trace, no warning, just gone. What would happen to our cities, our homes, and the Earth itself? This thought experiment delves deep into the astonishing transformation our planet would undergo in the absence of its most dominant species, humanity. The immediate aftermath: silent cities. In the hours following humanity's disappearance, the world would fall eerily silent. Cities that once buzzed with the sounds of life, cars honking, people chatting, machinery humming, would be left in a state of suspended animation. Cars would crash as drivers suddenly vanished, airplanes would plummet from the skies, and power plants would begin shutting down without operators to manage them. Without human intervention, nuclear power plants would face catastrophic failures. Some might continue to operate on automated systems, but eventually, their cooling systems would fail. This could lead to a series of nuclear meltdowns, releasing radiation into the atmosphere. However, nature has its ways of healing, and in the long term, even the most severe radiation would be absorbed by the Earth. The first few days, nature begins to reclaim. Within days, electricity grids worldwide would fail, plunging the planet into darkness. Power stations would shut down as they run out of fuel or suffer breakdowns without human maintenance. The lights that once illuminated cities would flicker out, leaving only the stars and moon to light the nights. Water systems, too, would collapse. Without human oversight, water treatment plants would cease operation and the supply of clean water would halt. Pipes would burst as pressure systems fail, leading to flooding in some areas and drought in others. In the absence of humans, animals would start to explore areas they once avoided. Pets like dogs and cats would either revert to their wild instincts or struggle to survive without their human caretakers. Wildlife would venture into cities, finding them devoid of the usual threats. Deer, coyotes, and other animals would roam the streets freely, while rats and pigeons would thrive on the remnants of human civilization. The first year: decay and growth. As the months pass, the structures we've built would begin to show signs of decay. Without constant maintenance, buildings would start to deteriorate. Glass windows would shatter, roofs would leak, and vegetation would take root in the cracks of concrete. Vines would creep up the sides of skyscrapers, and trees would grow in the middle of highways. Urban areas would quickly become overgrown. Without human intervention, nature would reclaim the land. Grass would break through sidewalks, and forests would begin to re-establish themselves where cities once stood. In the suburbs, lawns would turn into meadows, and gardens would become miniature jungles. On the coasts, the absence of human activity would allow marine life to thrive. Beaches would be deserted, and coral reefs, free from the pressures of tourism and pollution, would begin to regenerate. Fish populations would explode, and marine ecosystems would flourish in the absence of fishing and industrial activity. 5 years later, Earth's transformation accelerates. 5 years after humanity's disappearance, the Earth would be a very different place. Most man-made structures would be in a state of advanced decay. Wooden buildings would have rotted, and metal structures would be rusting away. Concrete and asphalt, no longer maintained, would crack and crumble, making roads and bridges impassable. Nature, on the other hand, would be thriving. Forests would have overtaken cities, with trees growing through the floors of office buildings and animals nesting in abandoned homes. The air would be noticeably cleaner as pollution levels drop. Wildlife populations would have surged, with species that were once endangered now thriving in the absence of hunting, habitat destruction, and pollution. Rivers would flow freely, no longer dammed or diverted by human infrastructure. Wetlands would expand, and new ecosystems would emerge in areas previously dominated by agriculture and urbanization. The climate would also begin to stabilize, with the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions leading to a gradual cooling of the planet. 25 years later, nature dominates. A quarter of a century after humanity's disappearance, nature would have fully reclaimed the Earth. Most of the infrastructure we built would be in ruins, with only the most durable structures, like stone monuments and some skyscrapers, still standing, albeit heavily overgrown and crumbling. Cities would be almost unrecognizable, transformed into dense forests and grasslands. Animal populations would have dramatically increased. Predators like wolves, bears, and big cats would roam freely across the continents, while prey species like deer and rabbits would be abundant. The extinction of many species, driven by human activity, would have slowed, and some species might even begin to recover. In the oceans, marine life would be at its healthiest in centuries. Coral reefs would have fully regenerated, and fish populations would be booming. The absence of industrial fishing would allow larger species, like whales and sharks, to flourish, and new marine ecosystems would develop. 50 to 100 years later, the human legacy fades. As the decades pass, the remnants of human civilization would continue to fade. Buildings that once defined city skylines would have collapsed, and roads would be buried under layers of soil and vegetation. In some areas, the only signs that humans ever existed would be scattered ruins, artifacts, and the occasional plastic debris that takes centuries to decompose. Forests would dominate the landscape, covering vast areas that were once farmland, cities, and industrial zones. The world's ecosystems would be balanced and healthy, with a diversity of species filling every ecological niche. Nature would have erased most of the scars left by human activity, and the Earth would be thriving in a way it hasn't for millennia. Thousands of years later, Earth restores its balance. In the millennia following humanity's disappearance, the Earth would have fully healed from the impacts of our existence. The climate would have stabilized, returning to natural cycles dictated by the Earth's tilt and orbit. Ice ages would come and go, shaping the continents and ecosystems. The traces of human civilization would be almost completely gone. Only the most durable artifacts, like stone structures, buried cities, and possibly some plastics, would remain, but they would be buried deep beneath layers of sediment. Over time, even these would be worn away by the forces of nature. New species would have evolved to fill the niches left by extinct animals, and the planet would be rich with life. The Earth would be a pristine, balanced ecosystem, free from the influence of humanity. Conclusion: humanity's disappearance as a new beginning. The disappearance of humanity would mark the beginning of a new era for the Earth, one where nature reclaims its dominance and restores the balance disrupted by our presence. While our cities and structures would crumble, the Earth would thrive, becoming a vibrant, diverse, and healthy planet. This thought experiment serves as a reminder of both the fragility and resilience of our world. It highlights the profound impact humanity has on the Earth and the potential for recovery if we were to suddenly vanish. But it also raises important questions about our role as stewards of the planet. What kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? And how can we ensure that our presence on Earth contributes to its well-being rather than its destruction? These are questions worth pondering as we navigate the challenges of our time, striving to create a future where humanity and nature can coexist in harmony. In the end, the disappearance of humanity overnight is a sobering reminder of the importance of our choices and actions. It challenges us to consider the long-term consequences of our behavior and to envision a world where we live in balance with the planet that sustains us.